According to a study, but in a collaboration between Flinders University and the University of Alaska and the Charles Darwin University, alcoholism develops at a young age. Even though this is the case, why do some minors say it? 2 out of 3 minors say that it's easy to get alcohol, and 1 in 3 say that it's easy to get from their parents. Doesn't this question the limitations on alcohol consumption and purchasing? That leads to our research question. Should the limitations of alcohol consumption regarding young adults be more limited in the United States? Good morning, my name is Brandon Hussein.
My name is Claudia Mall.
My name is Tiffany Linton.
And my name is Will Browning. There are 3 major ways that alcohol affects the human body: through the mind, the body, and one's social relationships with their family and peers. Starting with the mind is the most powerful organ in the human body. This is the exact reason why doctors and psychologists study the mind for countless numbers of hours. When alcohol enters the bloodstream and makes its way up to the brain, alcohol proteins attach to neurotransmitters and receptors, blocking communication with each other. This causes memory loss and lack of decision making. Next, the body. Although alcohol affects every single organ in the human body, there are 3 major organs that will be focused on: the heart, the stomach, and the liver. Alcohol raises blood pressure, which can cause heart disease and heart attacks within the heart. Following that, the stomach. Alcohol deteriorates the stomach lining, causing digestion problems. And lastly, the liver. The liver is the only organ in the human body that can regenerate itself over time. The liver, however, when alcohol deteriorates the liver lining over and over again, the regeneration of the liver can slow down or come to a halt altogether. Lastly, social relationships. It is a known fact in America that people are hesitant to be around addicted people or people who depend on alcohol. This can lead to problems within family relationships and friendship relationships.
Adding on to what Will said, alcohol abuse can lead to domestic violence. As you can see here, men who are relying on alcohol are 6 times more likely to commit acts of domestic abuse. Individuals under the influence typically make impulsive and harmful decisions to other people. If the drinking age in the United States is lowered, the window to domestic violence will open even further, since individuals have more chance of gaining access to alcohol. As shown here, alcoholism can strongly influence an individual's mental health. Major depressive disorder and alcoholism are closely related. Every 40 seconds, somebody dies of suicide. 1 in 3 of those people are found with alcohol. Found with alcohol in their blood system. This shows that if minors have access to alcohol, they are more likely to get mental issues.
Building on to what Claudia said, mental health issues detrimentally affect the workplace environment. As shown on the left side of the graph, this is the amount of time and seconds that it took to complete a simulation. And this took place from day 1 to day 2. There was 2 groups, the placebo group and the alcohol group. And the group who consumed alcohol saw that from the first day compared to their last day, on average, they took almost 300 seconds longer to complete such a simulation. Meanwhile, the placebo remained relatively constant. Building on top of that, workplace performance is also detrimentally affected by alcohol consumption. The left side here shows the positive values are good workplace performance and the negative values are bad workplace performance. There were also the same 2 placebo groups and the alcohol group. The placebo group remained constant throughout day 1 and day 2, but the alcohol consumption group decreased over the time period, showing that alcohol consumption negatively affects workplace performance.
Picking up where Brendan left off, further limitations upon alcoholic purchases not only preserve the safety of the community, but also simultaneously lower the crime rates. Let's take a look at the effects of the 1991 federal alcohol tax increase. As you can see here, in 1991, they all slightly increased by 6%. and reduced injury deaths by 4.5%, it still had a larger effect on violent crime. How could this be? Well, this 2006 graph, 2006-2010 graph by the Census Bureau demonstrates a spatial relationship between the number of alcohol outlets and prevalence of violent crime within the city of Baltimore. The bigger the blue dot, the more alcohol outlets, and the brighter the red, the higher concentration of crime within the area. Clearly, the higher prevalence of alcohol outlets, the greater the crime concentration. Why might alcohol have this effect on crimes? Well, as Claudia earlier mentioned, alcohol has the power to elicit quite powerful emotions, making for strong mood swings. If inebriated to too great of an extent, a person can be irritated or angry enough to reach dangerous crime-inflicting levels. As you can see here, from age groups to 12 to 26 indulge in drinking, making for about above 40% of the population, as you can see above. Imagine if someone became so emotional that they could attack someone at the drop of a pen. As you can see, the intensity of alcohol outlets are so, restrictions, how would we solve this? Well, restrictions include background checks, which verifies you are of 24 years of age, in consistency with Will's, with the brain degeneration that can come with drinking before your neurons have developed. There's also verifying that you're on no medication that drinking alcohol may interfere with, as well as recent criminal activity within 1 to 2 years before time of purchase. Among the restrictions, other solutions that we came up with were cognizance forms, additional consumer warnings, and an statement of employer approval form, which would verify that alcohol will not disturb your capacity to work at full capacity.
However, with these solutions comes a few limitations. First being funding. There needs to be funding to educate people on the effects of alcohol in one's life. And secondly is people just not caring about what alcohol does to their lives. They would rather feel the effects of alcohol in the short term than realize what it does to them in the long term. Thank you. Any questions?
You guys would just slide together like everyone else has done all day? It's like scooch together. All right, Ms. Small, we're gonna start with you, first question. Reflecting on your colleagues' work, which one had the greatest impact on your overall understanding of the problem your group identified?
Will's argument had the greatest impact because he kind of summarized everything that we all had. He talked about the mind, body, and mental health, and that tied into everything that we all said.
Okay, next up, Tiff. Describe an argument from one of your peers' individual report that makes you think differently about your team's solution.
An argument about one of our individual reports was the stress relieving impacts that alcohol may have in the short term. However, we did not include this since the bad things about alcohol take precedent over the short term good effects that alcohol may have. That brought us to our solutions on ultimately restricting alcohol usage to a further extent.
Okay. Next up, what is a way in which your team's resolution makes you think differently about your own work?
Well, as Claudia mentioned about suicide, it really made me reflect on the true effects long-term of alcohol, and it really hit an emotional point. And as I was speaking upon the neurological and then the mind, it changed my thinking upon how the mind works.
Okay, and last question. Brendan, can you give me a specific way that your thinking changed as a result of learning what Tiffany's report was about?
Learning about Tiffany's report, which regarded crime and its direct relationship with alcohol, we could see. Please repeat the question, sir.
Oh, jeez, I just changed it up. Give one specific way that your thinking changed as a result of Tiffany's findings.
Knowing that Tiffany's IRR was about alcohol consumption and its direct relation to crime, it changed my thinking because my my RR was about the basis of all alcohol consumption's like effects, but knowing that it affects the crime rate allowed me to come up with a solution that needed more background checks and restricted the usage of alcohol.